right, let's start with, and I know this is not your body, this is the Senate, but I know that there's two different bills being introduced, one Republican backed, one Democrat backed, and from your side of things in Congress, I mean, in the House of Representatives, do you see movement in the next week or so?
The short answer, not really. I see what's happening, and I thought Saturday after the president spoke, I thought, hey, maybe this is really something's coming up, because this is an offer that really the Democrats should really say, this is something that we should really consider. But, of course, just as soon as I heard that Nancy Pelosi shot the deal down before the president even spoke, then I knew it was probably not going to end well. So I really, it's just this is the most unique situation I've ever seen, and I've tried to analyze it. Why? Because I've been through some shutdowns before, being in Congress for several years, and I've tried to analyze why this one is so different, and I think it really boils down to the fact that this is one issue that is either it's what I would say, it's either black or white, on or off, yes or no. It's not where you can split the baby in this situation. You can't have a wall and not have a wall, because it really just comes down to that. The president wants a wall. The Democrats don't want to have a wall. And you can't have half a wall. So that's why I think this issue really, there's no way to split it. And somebody has got to give in one way or the other. And, of course, those of us in the House, we're standing strong with the president, because we think that $5 billion or $5.6 billion is not a lot to ask for in the scheme of how much we spend here in Washington, D.C. to try to protect our borders.
Right, Congressman, I have a quick question for you. Do you see this, because I wonder, there seems to be more and more issues. We're talking about the wall and the government shutdown this time, but more and more issues where there really can't be a compromise. And I've kind of seen the country moving this way for a number of years. Is that beginning to be part of the conversation in Washington? I mean, you can't really compromise between, a free market capitalistic system and a socialistic system like some of your new colleagues in the U.S. House seem to be for. Do you see a day coming where it's harder and harder and harder, that there really are two different visions for America, and compromise will be more difficult moving forward?
Yeah, well, I think compromise has really become a really negative, has a negative connotation here among the American people, because they see compromise is saying that you're not standing by your principles. And each of us have our bases. The Democrats have their base. The Republicans, we have our base that, looks at compromise as saying you're selling out. And I think what we've got to look at, instead of talking about compromise, I think we've got to try to find common ground and try to find some common issues that we do agree on. Right now, we tend to be focused just on the negative. But back to your question, I think you're exactly right. I think it's much more difficult to reach that common ground, so to speak, because now anything that where you give an inch, and I'll be honest with you, what the president did on Saturday has really, there's been some people in the Republican base that has turned on the president. One of the terms now they've called him is Amnesty Don. And I just, which personally I don't think I would go that far. I think the president is trying to reach out to the Democrats in some way, whereas they're not trying to reach out in any way. And I think a 3-year extension, I would not call that amnesty, especially because it doesn't even include citizenship. It's just basically a 3-year extension. So I think some of the ones on our side, on the Republican side, I think there is room there. I think we've got to find some common ground.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I understand their feeling also, because it has seemed historically so many times that it's our side, it's the Republican side that gives, and we kind of say, all right, we'll meet you halfway, and they say, well, great, we won. And so we're always kind of meeting halfway, so I'm sure there's some sensitivity there. I don't even know how long we have, but I wanted to ask about one other issue. The whole issue of putting the citizenship question on the U.S. Census. That affects us directly in the state of Alabama. It affects how many congressmen we have.
Yep.
It's a big deal to us.
No,
where
that's
do you see
been a big
that
issue. And I am just actually going on the. I'm going to be the ranking member. Chairman is no longer in our vocabulary on the Republican side. So
why do we not say chairman anymore, Congressman?
Well, since we're lost the majority, we've.
Oh, we're just ranking members. Okay, I was afraid you were going to tell me because we couldn't say chairman anymore.
And
yes.
So but I'll be the Republican on the Commerce, Justice, Science Subcommittee of Appropriation, which appropriates money to the Department of Commerce. Commerce is the agency that does the census. And so this is going to be an issue that I'm really going to be following closely in my new role as the ranking member. But, it amazes me how there's so much pushback just from a simple question to knowing if somebody, because I think it really goes back to the fact that we need to know that question in order to know how many citizens there are in a particular state, because I don't think the Founding Fathers intended illegal aliens to have a representative in Congress.
I don't think they did either.
I think that it was for citizens of the United States. And if you don't know that going into this, when you have these census results, how do you know if it's just somebody living there illegally? Now, just because they answer the question, that doesn't mean that they're going to be, sent home. It just means this is just trying to get an honest answer from people.
Right.
And so I just think that we have to know that question in order to know. And if we don't, then you're diluting the whole premise of one man, one vote, because if you have a third of the citizens in a particular state that are illegal, that's going to dilute the voting strength that somebody in a state that where 100% of the citizens of that state are legal.
Congressman Robert Aderholt, 4th Congressional District of Alabama, serving in the United States House of Representatives, joining us. Do you have another segment you can give us, Congressman?
Sure, yeah, I can do another segment.
All right, good. I want to ask you about your work environment up there now that you have some new coworkers, so to speak. I want to know if it's as chaotic as it seems with some of the comments coming out of Alexandria Cortez and others. So we'll talk with him about that when we come back. Matt and Aunie, Talk 99.5. I mean, if you need progress, you look no further than Washington right now. Congressman Robert Aderholt from the state of Alabama on the Matt and Aunie hotline. All right, so when you went back to work after the Christmas break, you had some new faces there. What's that been like? Because here we think it doesn't get much nuttier than what we're seeing right now. But is it the same feel in D.C. for conservatives?
It's been sort of weird getting it because of the shutdown. It's sort of like we haven't been in. It hadn't really got in earnest because we have not really got into every week the Democrats because they have led the agenda on the House side anyway, has brought up a Democrat bill that has everything except the wall in it. And so every week we do the same thing. We vote on a bill that is not going to be accepted by the president, and we're going through these motions. We've not really started committee hearings yet because they're just now getting everybody populated on the committees because they have to go through the process of getting the new freshmen. Matter of fact, you were mentioning AOC, which Alexandra Cortez. They nicknamed her here AOC, and she was just, I think, in the last couple of days got on her committee the assignments, which is going to be one of her committees will be the House Oversight Committee, which I'm sure she will be a bulldog on that committee. That will be the committee that really tries to go after the president and subpoena the president and tries to embarrass him and make him look bad. But, I have, like I said, it's still early into the day. We went in on January the 3rd, so I'm still learning people, still seeing new faces. But obviously it has been just crazy. And we talk about AOC. She's just one of many that are very similar. I think she gets the most attention because she's the most outspoken. But there are a lot of new members that are just like her that are very much in your face and really when they go on the news media, they don't they don't pull any punches.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. Wish we were there.
Yeah, Congressman, I remember back in the days when I thought I wanted to be in Congress, but I can honestly say I'm glad that you folks are up there and I am here in Birmingham with Aunie on the radio.
Yeah, this is nobody's yelling and screaming here, just us.
Well, it's you know, I like to tell people there's never a dull moment up here, and especially over the last few years, it's just been, you know, one thing after the other. But it is really, you know, it's going to be yet. I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg with these new members that are coming on, because they are so radically to the left and so embrace the socialist agenda that a lot of their former or their predecessors just really didn't. Even though they were Democrats, they didn't really go that far to the left. So it's going to be just fascinating to see. You know, I believe they're so out of step with most Americans that I think it's, you know, they're going to embarrass themselves. But at the same time, they're still a force to be reckoned with.
You know, I do see Democrat Steny Hoyer. I saw him. There's been several others who say, well, sure, the president should give his State of the Union address. I have no problem if he comes to the House and does that. Or, yes, we'd be willing to consider some sort of barrier. So I know there are moderate Democrats. I mean, compared to AOC, they're all moderate probably. But with Pelosi at the helm, those voices are just drowned out, it feels like.
Well, you mentioned the State of the Union. That is a whole other issue that has sort of come up that I'm sure you've been following it, and we're sort of sitting here on pins and needles. The State of the Union is slated for next Tuesday night, so it's not like it's a month away, and so we don't even know where it's going to be. Usually Congress is invited to the State of the Union. That's been an age, I think, for over 100 years. You've always had the president deliver a State of the Union. Now let me say that technically the president does not have to give that in person, and for a long time he never did give it in person. I think it was around 100 years ago, maybe a little more than 100 years ago, was when the president started actually coming before the House and the Senate and delivering in person the State of the Union. But it has been a tradition for now about 100 years. And but it's always the members of the House and Senate are there to receive the president, respect him there at that time, and for the Pelosi then to renege on the invitation is just really crazy. So I don't think the president knows if he officially has an invitation, but I think at the end of the day, I may be wrong, but I think at the end of the day, he is going to end up going to somewhere doing like a rally type State of the Union and being able to just to speak the way from his heart and and not be restrained, and because he can give the State of the Union wherever he wants to.
The border, that would be fun.
He may do it. You may see him down there on the border. It would be a great backdrop.
Well, good, because I don't think an Oval Office statement, I think he shines when he has people there, and I know there are many people who want to be there to support him.
He gets energy from the crowd, I think.
Yeah, and that's an interesting way to approach it. We feed on that energy and speak to those of us who do believe in border security, and we want to know the state of this union, despite what the Democrats want us to know. Robert, it's great to talk with you. You've already got some listener feedback saying, please come on more. You don't spin it. You speak the truth. So please come back.
Yeah, I'm happy to be there, and we'll be in touch, and I'd love to be on the show, and look forward to being with you. And Scott, good to be with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you being on, Congressman. Hope you're doing well.
All right, with that agreement, we'll call you back in about 30 minutes. Just see how you're doing. Check on you.
All right, I'll be here at my desk.
All right, just wait for the phone call.
Bye-bye.
That is Congressman Robert Aderholt from the 4th Congressional District. Good to talk with him. I can't imagine. I mean, it is kind of a soft open with the government shut down a little bit, and you see AOC on television all the time, but the fact that he said there are others and several others, if not many others like her, she's just the one getting the attention.
I think there
right
are a number of Republicans who are just now, I'm not talking about Robert, but who are just now realizing that the other side they are serious, and they are not playing. They haven't been playing for the past 20 years. And I think our side is just now realizing, oh my gosh, there's not going to be a compromise. There's no negotiating. We either win or we lose. And I think that's hard for some folks, especially very civil people who want everybody to get along. And they're like, well, this makes sense. I've talked to congressmen who still believe if I have a good idea and I explain it and they see how it's good for the country, then people will rally around it and will pass it.
And that's not
That's
happening.
not the way it really is working anymore.
All right,
If it ever actually worked that way.
When you were in Montgomery and you could talk and negotiate some things.
I was helped many, many times by people across the aisle. I was often told the story, and it might be wrong, but Earl Hilliard, who was the Democrat congressman from the Birmingham area, I forgot when he stopped serving, but the story was always told to me in Montgomery that he was in the Alabama legislature. He ends up going to Congress, gets there and says something like, well, hey, in Alabama, we were able to work with Republicans, and they were like, and just shut it down immediately.
I wonder if that changes on the state level. We'll find out. Scott Beeson, always great to have you.
Democrats left on the state level.
Yeah, that's true. So we don't have to worry about it. Thank you so much
I had a great time.
for being in here. We're going to take a break.
This news report is brought to you by